Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Kurotsuchi joined Naruto's harem? Part 2. Actually agree with it myself, slowly smirked. You'll have to. Nar sighed as he made his way to the basement. Watching Enko hit those targets, he could tell this discussion will either be good. A shriek from Enko emanated from her throat as a kunai made a hole right through the target and kept going and planted itself into the wall. Yes, good or painful. Nar jumped as Enko hopped onto him, her unexpected weight carrying them down to the floor with Enko straddling him and her face inches from his. Narukun came to visit little old me. Oh, how excited this makes me, said Enko with a playful grin. Inside though, she really was happy to see him, but she refused to show vulnerability to him any more than she needed to, though. His influence and talks convinced her to at least change her outfit. She now wore a bra. That had taken at least 2 weeks for Nar to get that done. Oh, the blood loss. And mostly long-sleeved white turtlenecks with purple ninja slacks. This was her primary outfit, seeing as how she was still on the inactive duty list. Though with the way she was feeling, she was sure she would be on there for a little while. She did not know how to tell Nar or anyone. But lately, she had begun throwing up in the mornings and missed day. Very vital part of her femininity, which made her feel a bit anxious and nervous, scared, and unsure of herself. Lately, she had begun feeling moody towards anything moving, and it had brought her to getting a checkup by Sununade herself. She really did not know how to tell the news she had received to Nar. But seeing as how Sheen was out shopping for a bit, Enko felt that this was the best time to let him know of her discovery. Hey, Nar. Enko. I think they both stopped suddenly as they realized they both had something to say. You first. Nar said. Enko closed her eyes and sighed before pulling herself off of Naruto, but still sat on him, curling up on his lap as Nar leaned his body up to accommodate her weight, which made Nar ecstatic as he was beginning to feel a bit excited at her being there with her legs around him. His eyes glazed a bit at a sudden memory before focusing on the current situation. Nar, I've begun to feel different, Enko said silently, trying to find words to explain what she had to say to him. I've been throwing up in the mornings and my body has begun to feel really weird. I feel stronger and my chakra has seemed to get stronger. Things I used to never want to do and crave, I begun to do with more desire. So, I went to Sununade to find out what's wrong with me. Nar, thinking that he already knew what was wrong with her, decided to speak up to let her know that he already knew. Sadly, Enko wanted to speak a revelation as well, resulting in, and you now have a bit of the Uzumaki bloodline, and I'm pregnant. That Naruto's eyes went from reassured to shock, and so did Enko's. It was like a ticking time bomb in the Namikaze training arena. But the bomb just went off. Hokage Tower. What? Sununade was silent before she chuckled silently. Her chuckles changed into laughs before her laughs made her lean her head back to the ceiling and a loud gap emanated from her throat as she finally slowly got back at years of pranks from Nar. Raising a glass up as if giving a toast to herself, Sununade grinned to revenge and the future of Nar. May you live prosperous with his decisions. As they all come to him at once, Sununade would drink to that Namikaze training ground. Nar was shocked. How? When? Why? Who? How did this happen? When did she find out? Why did she tell him? Now. And who told her that? Nar thought back to that one night. That emotional turn of events that changed their friendship. Too. More than friends without either really knowing it. Flashback. No jutsu. Nar came in from Another quick escort mission to Waterfall and was rather tired from the long journey. He had gone non-stop to the village and all he really wanted was a good night of sleep. But some sniffles brought that thought to smithereens as Nar made his way up the stairs and followed his ears to the sound he had been hearing. Coming up to the door of the guest room with the door left ajar, Nar silently opened the door to find Enko curled up in fetal position, softly crying herself to sleep. Silently approaching her, Nar put one head on her legs softly, making her scream in fright and jump up in fear, only to see it was Nar. Wasting no time, Enko lunged into his arms and cried louder, letting her emotions run out. Nar held her in his arms and led her to his bedroom before sitting down on the bed, his back on the bed stand, patiently waiting for her to stop her tears as he ran his fingers through her hair. After an emotional couple of minutes more, Enko was finally back in speaking conditions. Another nightmare? Nar asked silently. Enko nodded into his chest. Well, all you had to do was call for me. You know, I would have been here in a matter of seconds, Enko-chan. No delay, whispered Nar as he continued to offer himself to her, being the shoulder for her to cry on. This was the fourth time that she had been scared of nightmares. Coincidentally, every time was when Nar was away on a 3 times she would send for him, and he would arrive. Not an hour later. Usually, she would be sleeping in his arms as she had become getting used to. But tonight was something else. Slowly looking into his eyes for reassurance, Enko found more than she bargained for. As she found Nar also silently crying. And that made everything to her clear. She had found the one person she had been yearning for in life. Someone willing to be there for her, care for her, love, and cry for her. She refused to not let her feelings be shown. She let all her fear fade away. Slowly, she grasped his Junin jacket, pulling herself up and putting her legs around him. She stripped his Junin vest off. Nar too scared to move. He had never seen her act like this. What was she doing? Enko tossed his flag jacket aside and then removed his undershirt, a navy blue turtleneck. Looking him into his eyes, Enko wanted to convey her feelings with words, but decided that actions would be better. Softly, she kissed his lips, and electricity ran through the duo's spine. It felt right. Nar let his hands drop to the sides of the bed. As the kiss deepened into more, his desires and hidden feelings for her slowly beginning to leak out slowly. Unknown to both, Koshi closed the door with his tail, yep. Approval. Nar placed his hands on her back before kissing her forwardly, making her fall on the bed with her arms locked behind his neck. Removing her shirt between kisses, Nar breathed before taking it up another level. They lost themselves in a night of passion, desire, lust, and fiery emotions as they tossed and turned into the night, pleasuring one another with actions they both did not think they had in them. They made love into the morning just to fall into it again by night. That was the night their friendships began to relate. Nar suddenly knew what occurred and smiled at Enko, who thought he would lash out against her and the baby. Well, I suppose the only question I have is, do you want the child to sign the snake contract or the toad contract? Said Nar softly as he pecked her forehead. Enko smiled and closed her eyes as tears leapt down her eyes. You brat. You crazy snake woman. Enko grinned evilly as she sniffled. But you're my brat, she said as her voice cracked. And you're my crazy snake woman. Nar confirmed as he kissed her again. The two of them falling to the floor in another field of emotion, bliss, and passion. 5 hours later. Naruto, fully dressed for the mission to Suna, then spring country, left a note by Enko's head on the bed as she slept peacefully. Maybe it was wrong for them to be doing what they did and not be married, as that was what Naruto always believed would be when he would want to start to have family. But he had no doubt now that despite what people thought, Enko would be a great mother for the child to come. Leaving a kiss on her forehead, Nar made his way down the stairs to where Sheen was awaiting him. Nar inwardly cringed after a few weeks of having Sheen and Enko argue between one another. Nar finally sat Sheen down and explained to her some very key things that could not continue. As such, Sheen slowly began to sort out her differences, and her and Enko actually became good friends despite the jealousy Sheen felt seeing Enko hug up on Nar so freely. But that was not to say Sheen didn't get her own time to spend with Nar. Nar would take her all over Konoha to the parks and even the playgrounds sometimes to talk and just enjoy being in the company of one another. But she would not be giving up in her pursuit of Naruto's heart. Pregnant Enko or not, stopping in front of the girl, Nar looked at her seriously. Please take care of her, Sheen. As taking care of her would be the same as taking care of me, said Nar with determination and trust lacing his words. Sheen would have been heartbroken to hear how Naruto dressed Denko, but she was way too adamant and in love with Nar to let his words mean that it was over in the race for his heart. Slowly wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him softly, Sheen let go and whispered her reply. I will, Naruto __, and when you come back, you can let me physically take care of you, she said, which would have sounded seductive to any man. But after getting to know Sheen, Naruto knew she meant everything but that. I'll be back soon, Nar said with finality. I'll be waiting, Naruto grinned a smile that made her heartbeat faster before pecking her on the cheek and disappearing in a yellow flash. She inhaled her heart to her chest as she sighed in bliss. I'll never give up, Naruto. You are the only one for me, Sheen said to herself. Yamanaka Flower Shop. Ino drummed her fingers on the counter in boredom. Ever since that day with Naruto, she had nothing but him on her mind. Everything reminded her of him. The flowers in the shop, the blue sky, laughing kids, Nar passing by on his way to the Konoha gate, the fourth Hokage Santa. Nar. Ino rushed outside in a pale blonde blur and flashed in front of him, halting his movements. Nar smiled as he put his hand behind his back. Hey, Enoch-chan. Long time no see. How have you been? Ino smirked. I've been bored. It hasn't been much fun doing missions then nothing. I see. You're going on a mission. And how long will you be away? Asked Dino, trying to see if she can get an estimated time so she can try and get him to hang out with her again. Nar put his hands behind his head and looked to the sky to try and guess how long he would be out. Well, depending on how long this will take, probably a week and a half. Ino smirked and blinked slowly while coming closer to him and zipped up his flag jacket, whispering in his ear, well, when you get back, I was thinking I can make you some dinner and payment for all of the lovely stuff you bought me when you took me shopping. Why don't you stop by my house when you get back and we can work from there? Said Ino with a smile. Knowing a man's heart was through his stomach, and with her cooking skills, Naruto would be wrapped around her little fingers. Sure, I can do that. Sounds like a really good date. I accept. I'll be back sooner than you know it for some of your delicious cooking, Enoch-chan, said Naruto, as suddenly hugged Ino, making her jump at the sudden action. Removing himself from her arms, feeling a bit cold from the sudden loss of warmth, he made his way to the gates, waving his hand up in a quick bite to her blushing face. See you when I get back. Enjoy the flower. Naruto said as he turned around and continued onto the tower. Ino raised an eyebrow at that. Flowers. What flow? Touching her ear, Ino smiled as she felt the roser had put behind her ear. Looking at the table, she found a card with his name on it addressed to her. Ino squealed inwardly. When did Naruto get so smooth? Quote. Making her way inside, the clone that was in the shape of a tulip poofed away. Its job done. Kona Gates. Approximately 6 hours later, Naruto was right in front of Tamari, ready to escort her into Suna before making his way to Spring Country. Tamari inwardly blushed. Who knew Nar would become so handsome? Looking at the image of fourth Hokage on the mountain, Tamari smirked. Like father, like son, ready to go, Tamari-san. Nar asked, respectfully. Tamari was a bit surprised at the respectful tone he suddenly took up. He used to be a brat, loudmouthed and obnoxious. Now he was respectful, punctual, and dressed rather well if she was to tell the truth. I am. The trip from Konoha to Suna will take about 3 days if we were to travel non-stop, but we are in no rush, so this trip will take about 5. I plan on stopping in towns and staying in a hotel room. I hope you do not mind, said Tamari as she turned to make her way out of Konoha. Inside, Nar wanted to cringe at the time it would take. But then he realized he can just flash his way to Spring Country, and that would take time out of his travels. Jumping into the tree lines, Tamari was off into her journey. Nar behind her not a second later. Mission begins now, I suppose, Nar thought. Little did he know, Tamari thought the same exact thing. Nar found that despite her appearances, Tamari was rather intelligent, sarcastic, funny, and great fun to talk to. So far, they had been breaking down the concept of wind jutsu. When the sun had begun to fall and Tamari decided to stop at the nearest small village for the night. It was then that the situation became awkward. So, there is only one more available room as a convention is being held in town. No problem. Book the room and I'll sleep outside, said Nar without hesitation. It would not be the first time it occurred for him where he had to sleep outside. He was a ninja for crying out loud. It was a normal occurrence for him. Tamari felt bad, but her respect for him went up a notch at his statement. So much had been learned in their talks. He was respectful, ambitious, courteous, and a great conversationalist. Tamari knew right there that this would be a fun mission. But it was time to add some more fun to it. Nonsense. You will be sleeping with me, she said, trying to test him to see if he was a gentleman in his thoughts, too. Naruto's mouth opened and he blushed a bit before closing his mouth quickly and scratching the back of his head. Embarrassingly. You mean I will be in the room with you? But on the couch, right? Nar asked. Besides, he did not want Shikamaru to catch wind that his girlfriend was in a bed with him. That would be a rather awkward conversation. Tamari chuckled before upping the ante. Slowly strutting towards him, grabbing his flak vest and bringing her nose up really close to his. What if I want you in bed with me? Naruto asked Tamari, trying to get a rise out of him. Nar got really nervous. Gar would be after him. Not to mention Kanyuro and Shikamaru. What was he to do? I don't think that would be a good idea. I mean, wouldn't Shikamaru get mad? Tamari raised an eyebrow before getting what he meant. Laughing at his nervousness, Tamari answered him. Why would he get mad at me sleeping in bed with you? We aren't together anymore, Tamari added as an afterthought. The two had decided a while ago that friendship would just be better off. Besides, what she was currently doing, she willingly volunteered to do for her village. Though Nar probably did not have a clue what the real mission was. Continuing on her teasing, Tamari slapped some Rio on the desk, while still staring into Naruto's confused eyes. My husband and I will take that final room, and I suggest you not bother us and get the best noise-cancelling device you have yet. Tamari smirked at Nar and whispered to the hotel attendant, I'm a screamer. Hotel room. Tamari chuckled at Naruto's depressive face as a cloud rained over his head as he mumbled about how the hotel attendant now thought they were a freaky couple. How he thought she was taken the whole time by Shikamaru and why she teased him so unexpectedly. Tamari sat on the bed and crossed one leg over her other, putting a cute pout on her face. She decided to keep the charade up. But Naruto __, what if I wasn't playing around? What if I told her I'm a screamer for a reason? Don't you want to find out? She whispered seductively. Naruto's face became redder again. What are you talking about? Nar stuttered as he backed up against the door in shock. Why was she messing around like this? He couldn't tell if she was serious or joking. And it was making him a bit nervous. Okay. So her and Shikamaru were no longer dating. He was sure her boyfriend and Gar would kill him if he was to get involved with the Wind Mistress. Tamari stood up and slowly walked towards Nar, a wise smirk on her face. Each step felt like an eternity to Nar. His breathing was getting heavy as he felt his mind and blood working against him. She was getting him worked up from just a mere walk. She was so confident in her movements, sure of herself and powerful. It was as if she knew she could get what she wanted with little effort. All of this attracted her to him, and he was just never willing to admit it to her. He kind of harbored a crush on her. He would ultimately be lying if he was to say he no longer had one on her. But seeing her like this and being around her for longer than he ever had been before, the feeling was intensifying. Tamari stopped in front of him before slowly moving her right hand. Nar closed his eyes and waited for whatever she was about to do to him. The doorknob turned. Well, what are we waiting for, Nar? Let's go get something to eat, Tamari said with a smirk on her pretty face. That was when Nar blanched in shock. She just pranked him. Nar slowly fell to the floor with his back against the door. Closing his eyes, he tried to drown out her loud why laughs and figure out how he got into this situation. He had Ino trying to cook food for him in which he was sure was going to be in an intimate setting. He had Sheen waiting for him at the house. He had a pregnant, bloodline-bearing Silas Anko who was going through hormonal issues. He had a random Simui who he had spent lots of time with as of late, training or just talking. He had an understanding girl, no woman in Hinata. Now, he had a flirtatious Tamari mocking him, and he was on his way to visit a princess who he used to have a crush on. Nar placed his head up to the ceiling and sighed before placing a rhetorical question. What's next? A girl from Kiri and Iwa on their way to Konoha. Nar suddenly felt a shiver go down his spine and decided never ever again to ask for anything more than what he already had. Picking himself up, he decided to catch up to Tamari. He might as well have some fun before anything else came along. Kiri, Mizukage's office. Tarangi Mei stared blankly at the letter received from Sununade, the current Gotham Cage. It was a simple letter that held loads of power and responsibility. She was to find a suitable wife for a clan head from Konoha in order to complete the alliance or find a clan head to offer in return. Simple enough. But then she read just who the clan head was, to which she was to find a girl for him. And an evil grin slowly rose on the face of May as she called for her guards. Letter slowly turning into flames as her bloodline went through it. Get the carriage and guards ready. May giggled as blood dripped out of her nose. It's time to get me a man. Eva. Village. Oni ducked behind his desk. His son right next to him as countless books and chairs went flying around the room. If he had known that Kurotsuchi would generate such a fuss about being signed up to get married to a Konoha heir as the final piece of their grand alliance, he would not have told her at all. He would have simply gave her a scroll and sent her off to Konoha and let Sunune deal with the irate Junin girl. Kurotsuchi calmed down. You don't even know who the person is, said Kitsuchi among the ruckus, lifting his head up to try and plate his daughter, only to throw himself back to the floor as a chair crashed against the spot his head was at the edge of the table being chipped off. How dare you sign me up to be married off like some weakling from a Kona clan? There are countless kunoichi who would have fit the bill. Now you're telling me I'm to be married to. Quote. Kurotsuchi looked at the scroll in her hand before calming down him. The room went silent. No desks or chairs. Book or scrolls were thrown. No more damage to the office. Noki and Kitsuchi slowly lifted up their heads to see Kurotsuchi deep in thought, sitting on a pile of upturned books and reading the paper. I suppose he would be a right suitor. Strong, powerful qualities of a leader. Not to mention him. Kurotsuchi calmly rolled up the scroll and stood up facing the Tsuchikage and her father. Kurotsuchi calmly smiled, her anger forgotten now that she knew who the person was. When do I leave? Oni's sweat dropped. Females. I will never understand them, thought Nar, his hands full of bags that were not his. Who knew that just like Ino Tamari was a heavy shopper, the only difference being she knew how to spend her own money. Guess she was more independent than most kunoichi, which was refreshing as Naruto's frog wallet could live another day. It was then that Nar just remembered something he had found specifically for the girl in front of him. Buying up diamonds from Iron Country, a satisfactory gleam in her eyes. Hopefully, she'll like it, Nar thought to himself. Suddenly, he bumped into someone, apologizing profusely. His breath hitched as he looked at a really beautiful girl. She had a heart-shaped face with long dark hair stopping at her midback. Her eyes were brown and her face was flawless. Not a pimple, not a cut, nothing. She was wearing a simple dark green shirt with a red skirt that stopped at her ankles. All around the skirt were blue flowers and on her feet were brown sandals. She was carrying a bag filled with contents that let Nar know she was shopping. But it was the look in her eyes that made him nervous. Sorry for bumping into you like that, Naruto said kindly, feeling the eyes of Tamari on his back as he addressed the girl. The girl smiled and held onto his arm softly. It was my fault. I should have been more careful. I hope you're not injured. If you are, I can patch you up in my house, said the girl innocently. But Nar had been receiving wishes like this from women for years. Since the pain invasion, he'd be foolish to accept this. Oh, I'm fine. Thanks for the off. Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Tamari asked with a hint of something extra in her tone and voice. Nar was pretty sure this would be a great time to get back to the hotel as Tamari looked to be finished with her shopping. Nothing, Tamari said. I'm fine. This lady here was just apologizing as she bumped into me. The girl nodded. Yes, I was just telling your boyfriend that if he was injured, I'd be willing to help patch him up. At my house, said the girl in a tone that also indicated another extra meaning to it. Tamari smiled, but her grin was reminiscent of Sai as she grabbed Nar by the arm. Well, we thank you for the help, but we must be going off now. Sorry that Naruto ___ here is so clumsy. Won't happen. Again. Bye, said Tamari swiftly as she walked away, still holding on to Naruto's arm. Her hands slowly slipping down to grabbing his hand. Nar said nothing because he knew two things now. 1. Tamari was jealous for some odd reason. 2. She wanted to hold hands, specifically his hand, because she was the one that slid her hands into his. 3. She wasn't flirting back in the room as much as he thought she was. Nar inwardly smirked. I think it's time to even the odds. Tamari-chan Hotel. Back in the room, Naruto watched as Tamari put all of her purchases into a huge storage scroll, deciding now would be a good time as any. Nar interrupted her by grabbing onto her wrist before she could grab another item. Tamari-san, I actually just remembered that I had found something for you a while back since I have the time to give it to you. I figured I let you have it right now, said Nar as he went into his hip pouch and whipped out a very small scroll with a kanji for gift on it, softly putting it into her hands. Nar slowly sat down on the bed. Open it, Nar said with a grin. His grin slowly widened as the smoke expelled from the gift and the scroll dropped. In the smoke, a silent gasp and whispers of, no, he did not get this for me. How did he find this? I've been trying to find one for years. Came from the smoke. As it cleared, a battle fan was seen. The design was rather simple as the metal outside had symbols of 5 elements. It's when you opened the fan that it got a bit different. There were 5 flaps. Within each flap was a seal with a different element. The fan was the rarest of all fans, as when you channeled chakra through the fan with the element out, the wind would become powered extra with a specific seal. People killed for a fan like this, but only 3 were made in existence. This one just so happened to belong to a wind maiden Naruto had met a while back. She was slowly fading away into the next life and decided to give the fan to Nar, saying he would know who the rightful wielder the fan belonged to. Nar chuckled as the fan blew some wind with each open of the flaps. Seems as if you were the correct wielder, said Nar as he stood up and made his way to the bathroom. Well, I am going to shower and prepared to go to bed. I hope you enjoy your. Nar had to stop as Tamari flung herself onto his bag and the two collapsed on the bed. As Naruto turned around, Tamari hugged him excitedly before getting off of him. Unknowingly straddling him, she continued thanking him over and over for the present, to which Nar said it was nothing. No, Nar, you don't understand. This was a clan artifact. It's been lost for years. This I have to repay you. For this, Tamari said resolutely. Nar smirked inwardly as he began his prank, slowly and softly running his hand through her hair. Nar pushed himself up and closer to her and lowered his voice. Repay me, huh? Nar said huskily in her ear, making her shiver a bit. Nar continued the charade as he brushed his lips against hers tenderly, his hand slowly grabbing her side as he turned her over, putting her on the bed and him kneeling over her. Nar slowly removed his hide from his forehead, his blonde hair spilling out over her, but not long enough to hit her face. He then slowly took off his flag jacket as his long cloak was already discarded by the door, leaving him in a white turtleneck. I know how you can repay me. I have a good idea right now. It's just you me on this bed in a hotel room. And I wonder what can we get into Tamarahime, said Nar with even more bass and huskiness to his voice. Tamar's heart was pumping faster and her nerves were twitching. What was Nar doing to her right now? She wanted him. She wanted him right now. Nar was removing his shirt and she couldn't help but wonder when he would start to remove hers. Nar slowly made his way towards her face and whispered in her ear. This is how it feels to be close to stasis only to be left hanging to Mari. Chan. Two can play this game, cutie, said Nar with a smile. As he kissed her on the lips, watching her eyes widened. Removing his lips from her, Nar got off of her and made his way into the bathroom, whistling a tune. Tamari was hot and bothered at the moment, who knew that Nar could do such a thing to her with such ease. Sighing and trying to calm herself down, Tamari was failing horribly. It seemed like this was the perfect mission, the best day, and Nar was the best man. Tamari stopped at that thought. Man, something she had to be honest with herself with. After the situation with Shikamaru fell through, the men that were available in her life were little to none. All of the Suna Junin were either trying to get with her simply because she was a rare piece, and even then they had to get through the second coming of Sazori of the Red Sands. And Gar, her brother, and the case cage. But then there was Nar. Everything she wanted in a man, kind, strong, caring, not just for himself but for others. Respectful, unafraid, and Tamari blushed. Handsome. This mission was not just an escort mission. It was a decision, one that she had the sole responsibility to do. The mission was finished as far as she concerned. Whipping out a scroll, she quickly filled in what she had to say before summoning a Suna vulture and attaching the scroll. Sending it out. Tamari turned around and sat on the bed. It was official. Tamari would not be getting to know Naruto Uzumaki. She would be getting to know her fiancé. The two Suna guards perched in front of the gates of Suna knew that whenever Tamari Sububaku returned, she was all business and usually immensely tired and tense from her long travels from Suna to Konoha. Well, imagine their surprise when they heard her laughter echo in the air before a blur stopped in front of them and a huge cloud of sand covered their stone-like faces. Nar planted Tamari on her feet and brushed the sand out of her hair. And you said that I couldn't make it through the desert in sage mode in 5 minutes. You should have known better than to bet against the great Uzumaki Nar. Now, what do I get for winning? Said Nar confidently, eyes reverting back to his natural blue ones. I can think of a few rewards for you, said Tamari suggestively as she put her arms around his torso and leaned into him. I think a big plate of food would do me. Well, said Naruto densely, ignoring Tamari's obvious innuendo. Tamari and the guards inwardly shook their head. Nar. Sometimes just never change. I agree with that statement. Naren. Food will be on me for bringing my sister back. Safe, said a voice. All three people that had previously pegged Naruto as dense instantly realized why he said what he said. He's a genius, thought the same three. Gar. Good to see that your hair is still red, said Nar. Tamari now, out of his arms and next to him, though her shoulder remained touching his. It is equally as nice to see you here. In person instead of the shadow clones that used to replace you whenever you visited, said Gar with a straight face. Nar chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head now. Well, there is no need for that now. I am here in living color. So, what's up? How's the village been? Said Nar, grabbing Tamari's hand. As he walked further into the village with Gar, not noticing the brief eye contact between sibling and the noticeable smirk on Gar's face and the red cheeks on Tamari. Hours later, Sububaku residence. Are you sure, Gar? I kind of have another place to go to after this. I can always come visit another day, said Naruto as he was being dragged into the home of the Sububaku bar. Well, more like his sand was doing the pushing, but you get the point. 2 things. 1. You must stay tonight, eat, and rest because 2. Sent a letter with a change in mission location. You are no longer headed to snow country, but to Earth country, said Gar calmly. Nar stared at Gar for a good 5 seconds before shrugging his shoulders and plopping down on the couch. Now, where is the mask-faced freaky bandit in pajama gear? Asked Nar, with a smile on his face. I'm with your girl, yelled an eye. Raped Konyuro in reply. I thought they had incest laws in Suna, yelled Nar back. Looking at Gar, Nar began counting down. 5 4 3 2 and a huge caterpillar made of wood came crashing out of the ground. Its mouth opening and Sanban being sent at Nar, who back-flipped over the couch and rushed to his left. Sanban littering the wall. Nar jumped in the air and Kaorimi with a stone grabbed the snake by its mouth and channeled a Renan. Sawdust began flying in the air in the background as Gar looked away and stared at the concerned servants. It's a normal occurrence. Everything will be back in order soon. Enough. This will get docked from Conqueror's pay as usual. Please proceed with cooking dinner. Thank you, Gar said calmly. The servants nodded resolutely and continued their duties. Suddenly, sand rose from the ground and halted Nar and Conqueror's movement. That is enough, Gar said, leaving no room for argument. Nar smiled and put the caterpillar down, Conqueror emerging from the back. You are very lucky, Brad. I was about to send those Sanban right back at you, said Conqueror confidently. Nar raised his eyebrow before looking at Conqueror's finger, which was connected to every single Sanban he threw at Nar, which was now in the air. Saying nothing, Nar simply turned around and summoned shadow clones. We can always take this outside, he said seriously. Konyuro looked at Gar, who simply pointed at the back door. Go. The two calmly walked outside, Sanban floating and caterpillar dragged by Naruto outside where, after a few seconds, sounds of scuffling and fighting began again, stretching a bit and popping the cork on his gourd. Gar too went outside to join the festivities. After all, if you cannot beat them, join them. Nar sat on the rail next to Gar at the K's cage tower overlooking the village. That was absolutely delicious, that dinner, said Nar. I am glad you enjoyed it. I am just happy that we cooked as much as we did. Maybe Jin Chiriki should only eat together once a year, said Gar jokingly. Nar nodded in agreement before getting serious. Can I be honest? Asked Nar. Gar nodded. Tamari. She didn't request me to just escort her, did she? Nar asked. Gar nodded. You are more perceptive than I thought, said Gar. So, what was the real parameters of that mission? Nar asked again. Gar said nothing after a while. Crossing his arms over his chest, Gar closed his eyes. In all honesty, it was a very important piece to a plan that is Cage. I cannot relate to you at this time. Just know that you personally will be seeing Tamari more often, said Gar. Nar nodded. I figured so. It seems things are moving a bit fast in this alliance business, said Nar in reply. So, you know, asked Gar, not really surprised. I do. Then, you know the many hands that want you to ask for their marriage, said Gar. Affirmative. How will you function? In fact, how do you function? Asked Gar. Nar simply smiled. I don't. I just let it happen. Known things will all work out for the better, said Nar. Gar nodded. The two sat there in silence for a bit, watching the street life and the scenery and beauty of Suna. 2 more questions, Nar said. Suddenly. Go. You heard the discussion between Tamari and myself when we got here, didn't you? Gar nodded. Affirmative. How does that make you feel? Asked Nar. I wanted to brutally lop your head off, crush your arm, pop the other out, and beat you with it, then kill you very slowly before spreading your ashes to the 4 corners of this world and hide the insides of your body. But that would bring up too many issues, and you did not reply to her very forward suggestion, Gar said as if talking about the weather. Naruto chuckled loudly. Man, I had the crush on your sister for the longest. If I wasn't focused on Sakura at the time, I think I would have replaced her with trying to take Tamari out on a date or two. Just being truthful, said Nar. Honestly, how long have you been holding that in? Asked Gar, who turned around to stare at the person who had appeared 2 minutes ago, who heard everything right after the tune-in exams. When you're in the hospital, you get to thinking about a lot. I thought, one day, she's strong, beautiful, and deadly. I am sure men bow at her feet in Suna every day. But you were still crazy back then, so I doubt they would try that, said Nar jokingly. Well, that is good to know. Now you can tell her everything to her face, said Gar seriously, looking at Tamari standing there smiling. Nar looked and his eyes widened in shock at how she appeared and heard his omission. So in embarrassment, he jumped head first off the roof. Gar simply began to walk inside the tower as his job here was done. He's all yours, he said as he kept his stride. Thanks, she said in reply. Walking to the railing and looking down, she made eye contact with the Nar standing on the side of the building, sticking with chakra, smacking a hand over his face repeatedly. Too loud, too loud, too loud. You know, it's kind of cute that you waited for so long to say anything about it, said Tamari, breaking him from both his talking to himself and concentration, making him slip and fall, only to float upwards as sand lifted him up from the building. Inwardly thanking Gar, Nar landed back on the roof and grinned weakly at Tamari. Hi, staring at one another, Nar sighed. Well, the demon is out of the seal now, you know, said Nar as he averted making eye contact. Tamari nodded and grabbed his head to make his eyes look at hers. Well, if you weren't a brat and wore so much orange back then, I could have went for you, too, said Tamari truthfully. Really? I mean, really, said Nar in shock. Then surprise. Of course. You saved my brother from the darkness that he was falling deeper in, and you never gave up in any of your dreams and ambition. I respected that, said Tamari as she moved her hand and grabbed his collar while looking at his chest. Red hue on her cheeks. Then you came back 3 years later, stronger and as dense as ever, but still a little perceptive. Me and Shikamaru were together for 1 year, and nobody knew anything. But again, you saved my brother, she whispered as she got closer again and leaned on him. Then came the war. And again, you took everything head on and single-handedly prevented hundreds of deaths and saving the nation, said Tamari, and tapped his forehead. That was when I realized that my silly little fascination was way more than that. It went from fascination to idolization to amazement, too. Well, maybe others would call it a heavy crush. But I prefer saying, I am captivated by you, said Tamari. Nar looked at her deeply and could see no lie within her. Grabbing her hand, Nar removed them from his body and turned back around to stare at the view and hold his hand up to point to everything behind him. Why May Tamari? There is so many other men that are better than me in the nation. Stronger, handsome, smarter, and well, maybe not stronger, but the other two for sure, said Nar. Seriously. Tamari giggled and grabbed his hand. Silly Uzuaki. They don't have what I need. They have what I want. It's not hard to understand, Nar. You have this thing about you that makes even the greatest enemy instantly want to be your friend. You can tell and do things that nobody can. And you care. You're so caring. It's not something I understood at first, but now Tamari grabbed his other hand. Now I love you for it. Naruto's heart began feeling pretty heavy after that statement. Wow, he mumbled. Tamari nodded. Wow is right. So yes, Naru Uzumaki. I chose you to be my future. And I will choose you 99 times out of 100, said Tamari. Seriously? 99? Asked Nar. Well, I did think Sasaki was cute. Before you went crazy, she said jokingly. Nar laughed and pulled her into her. I will make that 99 a 100% Nar then. Said Nar seriously. Tamari smirked. You better because, after all of these years of me denying it, Nar, no other woman will deny me from having you, Nar. At this, Tamari strengthened her hold on Naruto's arms and brought him in a bit, eyes turning red. And in the background, the sky turned black and screams began emanating in the air as flames showed up behind Tamari. No one, she said in a demonic tone. Nar nodded fast. Nobody, Tamaraheim. I understand 100% you are minds, heart, soul, and strength. And body. And did I mention heart? Said Nar really fast. Everything disappeared. And Tamari smiled. Good. I expect a really nice rain when all of this gets hashed out. Of Narukun, said Tamari sweetly as she led him into the tower. Now let's go to bed, but we're not married, but we can surely practice. You do mean just sleeping in the same bed, right? Tamari said nothing, simply hummed in response. Nar began breaking in cold sweat. Women are scary. Earth, country. 3 days later. Nar was, for lack of a better word, immensely tense as he walked through Earth country and then in Eva, making eye contact with nobody, but wondering why all the looks he got were less of anger or rage, but more of sympathy and sadness. That's the chosen one indeed. I wish him luck. It seems Namikaze Minato will be getting paid back. But not like this. I wouldn't wish his fate on anyone. Godspeed, Nar. And more words like this led Naruto to the conclusion Eva was crazy. Finally reaching the tower and making his way up to the Sway Kag, getting a hug from the front desk secretary, which confused him more as he approached the front door and opened it up to find 3 people there. Oni sat at his desk looking at Nar with a small smirk on his face. His son Kitsuchi turned his neck from his seat to wave at Nar, who waved right back. Kurotsuchi, however, glared at him the minute he entered the room to the minute he sat down, arms crossed and a huge scroll set by her feet, her face one of annoyance than anything else. What's up, Gramps? Asked Naruto coolly, ignoring the glare from the kunoichi and keeping his presence. Onoke shook his head. Brad, he replied, before the two smirked at one another. So, I have been brought here to believe I am bringing someone from Iwat to Konoha? Asked Nar. Onak nodded. That is correct. My granddaughter will be in Konoha for a month for an assignment concerning the alliance, and as I heard you were already at Sunsa, I requested your help in this matter. As you are the only one from Konoha, I believe my daughter has already spoken to and met. Not to mention, you are already out of the village, so it's more of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, said on. Naruto nodded his head. That is correct. When do we leave? He asked. Oni smirked. Now, said Oniati. Kurotsuchi walked up to Naruto until they were literally nose to nose. Now listen, and listen good. Uzumaki, I have no ill will towards you. I do not like this arrangement. I do not trust you. I do not like you. But I respect your skill and nothing more. So I expect nothing but the most civil and respectable trip back to Konoha ever. If not, I will not hesitate to burn your flesh until there is nothing that remains of you. Do not ogle me. Do not touch me. Do not Nar cut her off by being old Nar that all women love to hate. Oh my goodness. Not another one of these ladies demanding things from me that I'm simply not going to remember. Why can't you just get your bags and let's go? Good grief, lady. I don't even know you. I just got here. No disrespect, but shut up and let's go. Dat. Biao. You're giving me a headache. Naruto said, pulling his hair and over-dramatically making a scene. Kurotsuchi growled. I am serious, boy. I am not to be trifled with. Boy, I am stronger than you. You're the one acting like a little spoiled brat. Take that back, shrieked Kurotsuchi as she got in Naruto's face. No, you rock banshee. Utsumaki Nar. Backs down from nobody. Nar yelled right back in her face. Kitsuchi shook his head and smiled, and Onoke simply chuckled. Haven't even left and you two are arguing like a married couple, he said simply. Naruto's and Kurotsuchi's eyes both widened and they both jumped away, pointed at one another. I am never getting married to her. They then looked at each other and pointed at each other, speaking in unison again. Stop saying what I'm saying. Cut it out, you brat are. Nar grabbed her scroll and stormed out while Kurotsuchi hugged her father in anger and stormed off. Later, Gramps, Nar shouted angrily. Only I can call him that. Kurotsuchi yelled, gnawed on her forehead as she followed him out the door. Yeah, well, now it's two people. He's a bag of bones. You're his granddaughter. And that makes him Gramps. You call him that one more time, and I will break your neck in 3 places. Really? Well, bring it on then. I'm not afraid of yo. The building shook again before more screaming occurred, their voice slowly fading out of hearing. Oni's sweat dropped and looked at his son, who said absolutely nothing at all. The two then broke into loud raucous laughter at the entire situation. I give it one night before they start to mesh. Oni said, yeah, she's finally being the child we know her to be. Which works well with Naruto as he's been a child forever. Said Kitsuchi. To be young, Anaki said to himself. Sounds of the two continued in the background, but the two family members could care less. Think they'll fight in or out the village? Kitsuchi suddenly asked. Kurotsuchi has much more patience and loves Iu too much to cause a scene. It's why they have gotten silent for a bit. But knowing Naruto, he will make her lose her patience soon enough, Onoke said sagely. The anger of a woman will reign supreme. Nar is just too stubborn to understand. And sure enough, the yell echoed for all of Wood to hear. That's it, Yusuzuki, Doden. The rest was barely heard before the ground shook and more sounds began going on before it got silent again. And they are off, said Onoke. Sometime later, Naruto and Kurotsuchi jumped the trees in silent, a 4-day journey ahead of them. The two had finally stopped arguing and bickering, but had refused to say anything more to one another, both hoping the other would just go away. Nar sighed and flipped off the tree to land on the ground. Kurotsuchi following suit. Why did you stop moving? Yusuzuki asked Kurotsuchi. Because we need to get this situation hashed out now. I refuse to go any further until we resolve this matter, said Yusuzumaki. Kurotsuchi gritted her teeth, dropping her bag. She began breathing hard and heavy. I feel that this entire situation is unfair. I am hands down the greatest kunoichi in all view at the moment. And now I am going to be reduced to a mere trading piece for a grand alliance. To be some minuscule housewife, stuck doing dishes and merely cleaning, not being able to show the nation just what I can do in my abilities in the field. This is an outrage, yelled Kurotsuchi finally, blinking away the tears that gathered on her face. Naruto said nothing, allowing her to get out all The rage she felt within her. For my entire life, my plan was to be the best, to grow up and be the next Tsuchi Kage in the village. I was well on my way to attaining that goal. And now I'm stuck to be someone's wife, to carry their seed and die. I don't want to. Kurotsuchi's sob story was cut off as Naruto grabbed her by her flag jacket and shook her. Stop it. You are not thinking with your head. You are just putting the worst thoughts in your head and it is not healthy for you. First off, you can still be Kage. This should not stop you. You can always go back to your village. Secondly, have you ever thought that it is an honor to be the one thing that signified the alliance? Without you, your village would not be able to fully fulfill the treaty. And more importantly, who in their right mind would limit you to a mere housewife? You can fly and blow up things. I'd have you in the front line of everything with the strength you have. So, can you just cheer up and look at the positive side of things? Asked Nar. Like, what? Whispered Kurotsuchi hoarsely, throat hurting and composure now slowly piecing together. Well, for one, you are traveling with the most awesomes ninja in the entire nation. Uzu. Maki Nar said, Nar joyfully smiling and his teeth glinting in the air. Kurotsuchi looked at him with a straight face. Before giggling, Nar smiled. See, now that's more like it. You will enjoy Konoha. Don't worry, you'll fit right in. You can go shopping and go training and do all the other girly things you ladies do when you feel like it. You already know the ladies in Konoha anyway. It won't be as bad as you think. If it helps, I'll be with you every step of the way. As long as you don't turn into that bratty little chick from back in the office. Guess, that was annoying, said Nar as he began walking away, grabbing her bag as he walked. Kurotsuchi growled at him and ran after him. I'll show you. Brady. Get over here. Naruto turned around and dashed off once the IAI began giving him chase. I am not getting my skin burned by the likes of you, he screamed as he ran faster once he seen her catching up. Kurotsuchi also gave chase, but this time she had a smile on while doing it. Maybe this won't be as bad as I think. Konoha was just finishing her paperwork, sipping a nice cup of sake out of her coffee mug that said, World's Greatest Grandma. A gift Nar got for her from the land of iron. It was made of a very stone metal that Tsunade actually could not break if she wanted to, but she didn't. It was a nice mug. Picking up one more paper, Tsunade began to read before she spat her sake out onto the floor, something she never did. Reading the paper one more time, Tsunade took her coffee mug and threw it out the window, knowing it will be back soon. Enough. Grabbing the entire jug of sake, she began throwing it back and drinking all of the contents as fast as possible as she read the letter she had received. This hick is getting more crazier than I thought, mumbled as she pulled another jug out and looked at the Kiri letter, and the Suna letter and the Iu letter, not to mention the Kumo letters, all saying one name, Uzuaki Nar, said a voice that halted said person. Nar and Kurotsuchi were already in Konoha after Nar decided to forego the scenic route and head back to Konoha. Opening his front door, Nar was halted by his name occurring behind him in his front yard, which made him wonder how attentive he was to not notice the person appear. Turning around, Nar raised an eyebrow and jumped back before pointing at the person in shock. What are you doing back from your mission so soon? You had to go to Snow Country. You left 2 days after me, said Nar. The person in question shook her head and stood in front of him. You didn't think you were the only one that could travel fast, did you? Said Kakashi as he read his book calmly, turning a page and giggling. Well, Why are you in my front lawn then? Nar asked. That reason would be me, said a lady's voice. Nar arched his neck over Kakashi to lay his eyes on Koyuki. Kazuhana. Good to see you after all these years, Narokan. You have surely grown up since the last time we have seen each other, said Koyuki calmly. Nar said nothing, but his thought was rather simple. Please tell me she is not here. For me. After finally making his way home from his extremely long travels, Nar plopped on the bed and truly sighed in happiness and contemplation. It seems that, after a bit of confusion, Koyuki was not here for the young Naruto to his utter joy and relief. But for the young Kakashi, that reaction was utterly hilarious. You see, after catching up with Koyuki and going with Kakashi to bringing her to the office, Tsunade signed the papers she brought with her and turned to Hideki, saying that she was happy for him and his brand new fiancé to be. Kakashi then looked at the Hokage and then Koyuki dropped his book and then dropped himself stiff-bodied and non-moving. 4 hours. That was how long it took for Kakashi to wake up. And 4 hours worth of pictures for Nar to use in exploitation. The pictures will indeed get him to teach me those jutsu I have been asking for, said Nar resolutely to himself. But alas, work had to be done. Apparently, a Karakuger representative was coming to town tomorrow. And Naruto had to be the ambassador and show her around. The thoughts were endless. Geez, father, I know I wanted to change the nation into a place of true peace. But I never imagined things would get like this, mumbled Nar to nobody. It seemed as if he was literally the centerpiece to everything. Without him, a lot of these unions would not be working. But then there were the interactions with all of these women that had nothing to do with alliances that made him even more confused. Ino. With the dinner tonight, Hinata, not to mention Sheen. Asking him to being a priestess is my duty. How's that? Nar chuckled as he finally got her to be responsible. But kept quiet as it looked like she was not done talking. Sheen looked over at the view of her place before speaking again. And my power must be passed on to the next priestess. What do you say, Nar? Are you going to help me? Not seeing the shocked reaction from Sakura, Kakashi, and Lee, Nar placed his thumbs up and grinned. Sure, I'll do whatever it takes. Nar suddenly jumped out of the bed from what he remembered from that mission in Demon Country. No. In a mad dash, Nar left his room, ran down the stairs, opened up the door, and closed it before opening it back and yelling that he would be right back. With a cloud of dust following him, Nar jumped over the gate of his house and took the short route throughout the village as fast as possible. He needed some advice. Konoha Hospital. Sakura sat down in contemplation with her bento and tea on the roof during her break from her shifts. Getting the new hospital program and section up and running was something else, it seems. Luckily, with help from Karen and many other new people who were now an integral part of the village, the transition was much smoother this time around. It was pretty peaceful in these times of Konoha. Everything seemed to be going really well. Her and Sasaki, her genin, were thriving in training. Tsunade seemed less stressed out these days, and Nar completely changed. Where is he anyway? I haven't seen him in weeks, she mumbled to herself. A loud rumble was heard before a figure jumped up from the side of the hospital, body blinded by the sun. The figure landed and a huge dust cloud followed in its wake before stopping right in front of Sakura, who absent-mindedly grabbed her bento and tea from being blown away as well. After adjusting to the glare of the sun, she looked at the exact person she was talking to as he breathed in and out from his mad dash. Nar, I was just thinking about you, said Sakura happily. It is truly too late, Sakura. We have been over this many times. My love for you is like that of a sister. Though, if you were willing to let go of that title, I would be more than happy to. Nar never got the opportunity to finish his sentence as an Ira Sakura decked him from his chin and sent him flying off the rooftop of the hospital and into the sky, spit flowing in his disappearance. Eventually, his form became a star, disappearing from sight. So much for joking around with you, said the real Nar who was sitting on the bench. She just got out of to handle him. You are just like your sensei, mumbled Sakura. This banter had been going on for years. Nar flirting, Sakura swinging. It was very reminiscent of Sununade and Jera. And when asked why, Nar would simply say he was paying homage to his past sensei. It didn't make it right in Sakura's book, but she did find it amusing and it was something she secretly enjoyed. If it helped Nar cope with the loss of his sensei, she was willing to let it be. I know. Hey, do you remember that mission with Sheen? Asked Nar. Seriously. I do. I didn't think she would be here so soon for what she asked from you, said Sakura in surprise, but no real astonishment was seen in her facial features. What did I sign up for in my dense days? Nar asked innocently. Well, you basically said yes to a request to being the baby daddy to the next Demon County priestess. Congratulations, said Sakura, sarcastically. But Naruto knew exactly what she just said to him. Father, he said, face turning pale as a sheet of paper. Slowly falling over onto the floor, his soul exited his body. And screamed out loud in shock. 2 kids in a month. You are well on your way to accomplishing your plan, said Sakura, relishing in torturing Nar. Soul returning to his body. Nar shook his head. Ino is going to kill me, mumbled Naruto, causing Sakura to raise her eyebrow. Why would she do that? Her and Sheen hang out all the time. She thinks it's sweet that you're willing to provide an heir for Sheen, said Sakura. Really? Asked Nar hopefully. He did not think Ino would see it like that. Even if they weren't dating, it would definitely seem a little off-putting to have so many women in his life all of a sudden. No, she broke a couple tables when she got home. Maybe teaching her Tsunade's special fighting style wasn't the best move, said Sakura, seriously, making Naruto's soul leave his body once more. Well, my shift is done, but I am sure things will work out for you if you really think about it. Nobody else in Konoha can handle the tasks that you get. I truly think you deserve all the accomplishment that are coming your way. And I cannot wait to serve you when you receive that nomination we all know you are going to get soon. Enough, said Sakura, giving Nar a true hug to help him calm down. Nar sighed and nodded. You're right. Thank you, Sakura-chan. You always know how to make me see things logically instead of foolishly. Sakura interrupted with a smirk. Nar gritted his teeth and tried to hold his twitching eyebrow before straining his voice and replying. Yeah, that well somebody has to be the leader of this new Sannin they have been calling us. And you and I both know Sasuke would rather fight and move on to the next task. So anytime dummy, she chided. You do realize that I still have every single piece of that mission from before Sasaki came back, right? And now it was Sakura's turn to change into a pale white. Yes. Be very careful in what you say to me, Sakura-hime. I can change this entire place with one photo. Be a good girl and we won't have to take it there, whispered Naruto. You promised, said Sakura as she pointed at him. Promises are meant to be broken. But run along, my friend. You have work to do, Naruto said. Sakura calmed down and turned around, slowly putting her gloves on, knowing that the next sentence would be something along the lines of, "You know, I have heard about like student, like teacher. But never believed it. Until just now. Has anyone said that? Your chest is starting to fill out light." Sakura arched her body and swung a heavy punch that connected to Naruto's chin and sent him rotating in the air at Mach speeds throughout the village. Suna 80 was the last thing heard by Sakura as she took her gloves off and headed to the hospital for the next shift. Smile on her face just like Jera indeed. Later that night, Ino was stressed, but not in a bad way. After learning about the fact that Naruto was basically the #1 bachelor and how he had received about 4 marriage requests from 4 different women in 4 different nations, seeing Sheen and hearing about how he was about to be a father and then become a father again, not to mention seeing Hinata, it really made her feel as if she was being played around with. She felt like he was messing around with her and nobody messed with her emotions. But after breaking the 5th table and calming down, she thought about it logically. Nar was not a heartbreaker. He just didn't seem like someone who messed around with women. He was an honest man. You can tell everything from looking into his eyes. And she had been trained on how to break things down. And when she did, she came to the conclusion that when it came to her shot with Naruto, it was pretty much a risk she was willing to go for. Nobody had been able to get her in a frenzy like this. It didn't make much sense to her. She was not a sharing kind of girl. She wanted him to herself in all honesty. But that would never be the case. So, she might as well enjoy the times she could get now, before finding someone else if it didn't work out. Besides, she could be one of the lucky people to say she used to date a Cage. Who wouldn't want to tell that to their sons and daughters? But what if it did work out? What if she did fall in that word with Naruto Uzumaki? A knock on the door interrupted her future thoughts. "He's here already," she said to herself as she made her way to the door. Opening the door, Ino looked at the brown shoes, the dull orange pants, the brown belt, and the white linen shirt of Naruto before looking at his hands in which he was holding a bouquet of flowers and some exclusive sake from Tigakure. Naruto's face turned red as a tomato. However, when he looked at Ino, her hair was down and curled as she wore a purple skirt that stopped above her knee with a pink blouse and no shoes. Simple yet stunning. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she nearly whispered. Opening the door wider, she received the flowers and inhaled the scent. "These are beautiful," Ino commented. "I am glad you like them. I picked them myself," said Nar as he placed the drink on the table. Placing them in a vase, Ino turned around and sat down at the table. The house was pretty simple, Nar surmised. From the entrance were 2 doors on the right. One, he supposed, was Ino's room, and the other was for Sakura. The doors being painted purple and pink also helped a lot. The next door was for the bathroom, and directly across from him was the kitchen. To the right led to the living room with a couch and normal necessities, and 3 paces from the TV led to a glass door that led to a balcony with a nice view of Konoha. Directly in the center was where they were currently. "So, what do you have in store for little Ome to consume?" asked Nar, to which Ino simply went to the kitchen and returned with a huge bowl of ramen. Naruto's mouth watered and his eyes widened at the huge sight of the bowl of ramen. "I made it myself using some herbs and spices my family is known for. I hope you like it." Now, a thing about Nar is anybody that had the ability to cook ramen went under his important list. For years, Ayame and Tui had been up there for the great care they put into cooking this kami given gift. So it when Naruto took a sip of the broth, and he put the spoon down, and he stood up, grabbed a surprised Ino and hugged her. She was right there and then added to the list. I love this meal. I really do. This glorious masterpiece is something only you can provide. And no one has been able to mix nutmeg and salt in the right quantity like you do. Not to mention the amount of chili oil is just right. Not too spicy, but enough to cool the tongue. The miso is evenly put in with the dashi eggs perfectly boiled and mixed well. Ino, you are a genius, said Naruto. Passionate in everything. You got all of that from one sip, said Ino, beyond lost for words at how he broke down her entire recipe. I am serious about ramen, said Nar as he finally let her go to finish the ramen. Ino smirked and allowed him to continue eating, happy to have served him his favorite meal and him liking it so much. So, what has been going on in your life? Asked Ino, waiting for him to divulge the information she already knew about him. Sensing danger, Nar came out guns blazing. You already know what I am about to speak about, so tell me what you have questions about, and I will answer them, said Nar as he sat up and looked at Ino with a wise smirk. Ino wasted no time firing the questions. Is it true that you are to be wedded to Tamari? What is this about Enko being pregnant? Did you promise Shin to father her child? What is going on with Hinata? And you is Simui another person in this factor, and why is Kurotsuchi here in Konoha? Asked Ino at rapid speed. Yes, Ango is pregnant. Long story. Emotions took over with Shin. Apparently, I did say that I would, and I never go back on my word. So, that has to happen. Hinata knows about what is going on and shockingly is willing to agree with it. Simui is a Kumo representative, and she has the option of selecting any shinobi to represent Konoha in the Union. I enjoy the time spent with her, and if I am chosen, I will honor it. Kurotsuchi is here to be wedded to another person in Konoha as well. I do not know who they have selected officially. Rumor has it that my name is at the top of the list though. Anything else? Nar said. What do you feel about me? Ino asked without hesitation. Years of interrogation will get rid of all the nervousness. Nar looked at Ino for a while before moving the bowl to the side and grabbing her hands. I like you and I enjoy my time with you. Spending time with you makes me forget about all the worries. We are peas in a pod. Yet the little things always add up to me when it comes to you. I want to continue to get to know you more, and hopefully my situations do not come in conflict with that. If it does, I understand. But if you think about it, only the unpredictable occurs for the most unpredictable ninja in the nation, said Naruto with a bit of mirth at the end. Ino sighed before nodding her head in agreement. What happens if I choose to continue in this friendship with you? Asked Ino in a low voice. Nar smiled. Simple. I do my best to make you happy, said Nar as if speaking about the weather. Ino closed her eyes and made a decision. Morning Konoha gates. Nar stood at the gate, awaiting the arrival of the Kiri representative. It seemed as if the situations were getting tighter and tighter as time went on. I hope no. I pray that this is it. No more women. Nadeshiko village. A woman stood behind the envoy, said to Konoha with the most important message that they needed to deliver. It seems you have the power to change this village. Shizuka Sama. Shizuka smiled. Take care to Kiwi-san. As the group moved on to the village of the Hidden Leaf, Takia was smiled. That message came just in the nick of time. All she has been thinking about is Uzumaki. Nar said a voice. Naruto wiped his nose from the sneeze and the chill down his spine as to what he just thought about. Looking up at the person who called him, Uzumo pointed at the carriage in The distance. It was time to welcome the Kiri envoy. Naruto nodded, and after a while, the sight of the big Kiri emblem was in full view. After what seemed like a while, the carriage pulled up and the men protecting the sides instantly stood at attention before one went to open the door. And as the doors opened, two sandals stepped out and climbed the steps before they touched the pavement. And as Naruto's eyes went up on the figure, he made eye contact to a beautiful and powerful kunoichi that was looking back at him with a very passionate look in her eyes. Schooling his surprise, Nar brought his formal side out. He had no plans on messing this up for Konoha. Kage Sama, said Nar as he bowed at the waist. Naruto said May with that specific look still held within her eyes. Nar remained diplomatic and extended his arm for her to take. As he led her through the village in the hidden leaves. I am guessing that the representative for Kiri is coming later, asked Nar. May giggled. You would be smart to assume so. However, that is not the case anymore, as a set of changes have occurred within my village, said the Kage. If you don't mind me asking, what changes have been put in place? Asked Nar. It was this that May's relaxed face turned absolutely devious. A new Mizukage has taken the seat, and I have offered myself as the representative for Kiri, and it just so happens that I have already made my selection. Gripping Naruto's arm tighter, May leaned forward towards a frozen Naruto and whispered in his ear. You will make a fine husband, Uzumaki. Naruto. Hokage's office. Terumi May, recent representative of the Alliance of All the Nations, sat with Sununade as the two exchanged pleasantries. In the background stood Naruto, frozen solid, and stuck with the same face he had since May told him of why she was here. Periodically, blood would leak from his nose before quickly getting wiped away. He was going to be wedded to her. Well, it seems he is absolutely astounded about this new stipulation taking place, said May. Sununade smirked. Of course, he would be. I didn't let him know until just now after all. I have taken the liberty of getting a room prepared at his clan house for you to get to know one another better. Of course, a lot is going on with the recent developments taking place. Whatever do you mean? Asked May in curiosity. Well, started Sununade. 4 hours ago, Simui sat down with Sununade Shizune behind her to begin the meeting. Have you officially decided the person you would like to be married to fulfill this alliance with Kumo? Asked. Simui nodded. I have selected. 3 hours ago, Sununade opened the letter sent from Eva. We have selected the shinobi to fulfill our deed in the Grand Alliance. In 2 hours ago, Sununade sat with a smirking Tamari. I have selected. 1 hour ago. Hayashi Hyuga sighed as he placed the scroll in the hands of Sununade. My daughter has her mind set and will not change it. It is her choice of entering wedlock with recently Namikaze Uzumaki, Nar said with a smirk. It seems the man has become quite the option for many, Kunoichi May said. But it seems you no longer have to worry about that. Based off what we spoke about, said Sununade. Indeed, said May, looking at the still frozen Nar. Sunade grabbed a paper clip and sent it for his head. Nar, subconsciously catching it before waking up out of his stupor. May you do the honor of escorting your wife to her future home? Asked Sununade. Robotically. Naruto took the hand of May and without any sort of rebuttal, led her to his clan house. Sununade fell into her seat before chuckling diabolically, reminiscent of the late Orochimaru. It seems your good looks and charm has doomed your son into the most important piece for the Grand Alliance, said Sununade as she looked at the betrayed of Minato Namikaze, amused at all the suitors wanting the same person. This will either create perfect Harmony or perfect disaster, said Shizune. Oh, but this is just getting started, dear Shizune. We still have another one on her way to the village as we speak, said Shizune. Appalled. Poor Nar. Sunade shook her head. No, there is nothing poor about Nar now. If anything, many would call him lucky Nar, said Sunade. And I want grandchildren to spoil Shizune's sweat.